playoff system.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the way to go. Well, we'll have much more on the national title game later in the show, as well as a conversation with the Heisman Trophy winner, Ohio State quarterback Troy Smith. But before we get into the full slate of bowl games, let's take a look back at another incredible season of college football. This Year in Review flashback is brought to you by Manwich. Number 1 Ohio State and Heisman Trophy winner Troy Smith came out flying and never looked back. Notre Dame got thumped at home by Michigan early in the season, ending the Fighting Irish's national title hopes in September. Two perennial laughingstocks, Wake Forest and Rutgers, had Cinderella seasons, with Wake winning the most games in school history as they captured the ACC, and Rutgers sprinting all the way into November undefeated, but falling just shy of their BCS dreams. Rutgers wasn't the only Big East team making noise this year. The conference that was once looked upon as inferior had West Virginia and Louisville also vying for national titles late into the season. All in all, a great year for the Big East. In October, a controversial call almost cost the Gators a national title chance, but Florida continued winning, sometimes by the slightest of margins, capturing the SEC title and making their case to play for the championship. While the Gators won, the other Sunshine State powers struggled mightily. Miami lost on the field and tragically off it too. And their coach, Larry Coker, was fired. And in Tallahassee, the Noles finished 6-6, their worst season since Bobby Bowden's first year back in 1976. Another legendary coach missed his first game in 30 years after breaking his leg in a game against Wisconsin. And speaking of the Badgers, hats off to rookie coach Brent Bielema, who took over for Barry Alvarez and led Wisconsin to another 10-win season. Oklahoma lost their starting quarterback a week before the season, seemingly got jobbed in Eugene on a botched onside kick call, and lost their superstar running back. But somehow still won 8 straight and the Big 12 Conference title in Bob Stoops' finest coaching job of his career. In the WAC, Hawaii's Colt Brennan put on an aerial show, throwing for nearly 5,000 yards and 53 touchdowns. And Boise State rookie coach Chris Peterson led the Broncos to an unbeaten season and the school's first BCS berth. And then there was the game. Number 1 and number 2, two arch rivals, a day after the passing of Bo Schembechler. Scarlet and gray, maize and blue, the Buckeyes and Wolverines played a college football game for the ages. 3 points separated them. Ohio State's dream remained intact. Michigan on the outside looking in. As nearly a 2-touchdown favorite, USC only had to beat arch rival UCLA in the season's final week to get a chance to play for it all. But the Bruins won 13-9, upsetting their hated crosstown rivals and spoiling their season. We sat and waited. Would it be Michigan or Florida to play Ohio State for the championship? We soon found out that the Gators would be the choice. Florida looking for its first title in 10 years. The Buckeyes, their second in the last 5. What a season it was. Let's get right into this year's bowls and talk about one of the Cinderella stories this season in college football as we take a look at the Orange Bowl, which features Wake Forest against Louisville. And Andre, what a job by Wake Forest head coach Jim Grobe. They win 11 games, the most in school history. They get an ACC championship. They struggled with injuries early in the year, and they did it with a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, freshman quarterback Riley Skinner took over, and you know, it wasn't anything special, but he did just enough to win football games. He had to take a receiver, move him to tailback. A lot of shuffling for this Wake Forest football team, but a fantastic coaching job on the part of Jim Grobe.
And you'd love to see it from a school like Wake Forest, which has really not had much success in football over the past 20, 25 years to come through, and it's got to be very exciting for all their fans.
They would always start the season pretty good, and then they filter off at the tail end of the season. But the ACC, when they brought in Virginia Tech, Miami, Boston College, they certainly didn't have this factored in. Wake Forest representing the ACC in the BCS. But it just goes back to show you, you play the game on the field and let the cards play out.
And I imagine Jim Grobe will get a few votes for Coach of the Year.
I think so.
All right. Their opponent now is Louisville, and they had their injury problems early in the year. Their great running back, Michael Bush, my gosh, he went out early in the season.
Lost him in the first game of the season. Brian Brom comes in, and he's injured at the early stages of the season. They had to fight through that. Defensively, they played just well enough to kind of keep them in football games, so they got their quarterback back. Now Louisville, they're hitting on all cylinders, averaging about 39 points a game, one of the most highly scoring teams in the country. They are exciting to watch.
11-1 record. They were the Big East champion, as you mentioned, a high-scoring, high-powered offense. Their first BCS game in school history, and they came up just oh so short in that game against Rutgers, which might have catapulted them into that national title picture.
One of the best football games in all of college football this season, and there certainly were a lot of them, but, you know, you watch that football game, you're sitting on the edge of your seat the entire football game, and just a little bit short against a good Rutgers team.
All right, let's move on.